So we have an official debate happening. We have Deonteleologist here. We have Footsoldier. For this debate, Footsoldier is holding the position that studying philosophy at university constitutes a pyramid scheme. Deonteleologist is taking the opposition. As always, when we base upon who concedes, if we don't get a vocal concession, we'll put it to a voting poll in which you, the audience, can vote on who you think performed better overall in the debate. There's no time limit for the debate. Thank you both. You can get started.
Nice one. Okay, so I guess I'll introduce the proposition as it's my positive claim. And so this is not just trying to rip into philosophy specifically, it's more of a wider critique of academia. And the general thesis is if you go to university, unless you've got some sort of like scholarship or you live in a country where that's somehow free, like most of the time in most countries, you're just gonna have to like pay tuition fees. And I think right now it's something like £10,000 a year tuition fees to go and study at university. It depends on the university, of course. Maybe I don't know what it is in the US, maybe 15, $20,000 or something like it a year. It isn't. It's not really important the exact amount, but it's just some significant amount of money a year. So you have to pay all these tuition fees to be trained as a philosopher, and then once you're qualified or you've got your degree and you're ready to roll after the degree has been awarded, what are you going to do with that? Well, the classic sort of thing that you're going to do with a philosophy degree is become a philosopher, which involves teaching other people about philosophy. So then you teach the other people about philosophy, and they pay all their tuition fees, which may be like 10,000, 20,000 a year, and then they need to recoup their money back. So how are they going to do that once they've graduated? Well, in the same way the first guy did it, by getting a job as a philosophy lecturer, and then he's teaching more people who have to pay the tuition fees, and then after they graduate, make that money back by becoming philosophy teachers. And so there's this pyramid scheme. And then at the same time, you might be like, oh yeah, but they might not. Obviously, they might not be philosophy teachers after. Like, of course, not everyone who studies philosophy is going to be a philosophy teacher. They might not even want to do that. Well, that's fine. But the way that a pyramid scheme works is I if you're involved in the pyramid scheme, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to then recruit additional people into the pyramid scheme. It just means that if you've paid your money into the pyramid scheme, you've paid your money into the pyramid scheme. So you're part of the pyramid scheme, right? So whether you go and teach philosophy afterwards or not is sort of beside the point. You're in if you've paid your money into the pyramid scheme, you're in the pyramid scheme and you're part of the pyramid scheme because the people who are recruiting in the pyramid scheme have recruited you, you've paid your money up the pyramid, and you've it's a done deal. So you might think, okay, well, if people just wanted to do it for fun or something like this, then um, yeah, they can do it for fun. That's fine. But in terms of the idea of promised returns, of you will be able to earn money in future with this knowledge, um, in that sense, it's a bit of a pyramid scheme because there aren't many jobs. There may be some fringe cases, but there aren't many jobs that I can think of at least, where you can just go in to a job specifically based upon your qualifications as a philosopher and get paid without teaching other people about philosophy or without engaging in in the academia of the academic tradition of the pyramid scheme of um, teaching people or being instrumental to the teaching of other people and the recruiting of other people and teaching them to recruit other people and put, the pyramid scheme goes on, right? So you could say my last point before I let Dion attack my positive claim would be um, the only other thing I could see that you could argue for that, oh, well, it's somehow helpful to have a philosophy degree if you wanted to work in some unrelated field. Like, for example, if you wanted to be an architect or if you wanted to be a teacher, uh, teaching something else, or that's sort of like subject to the broader academic claim. But if you wanted to be a mechanic or an engineer or something, then having the skills that you develop in philosophy might be useful. But what are those skills? Like, I think critical thinking skills and all of these types of skills that are taught in philosophy aren't unique to philosophy. We learn to think critically. Even if you're doing a degree in art, we learn to judge things, or there's many ways that you can develop your critical thinking skills, and just studying philosophy specifically isn't the only way to do that. So if you go into a job as a hairdresser or into a job as a structural engineer, there's no specific unique qualities that philosophy is going to be advantageous for in your new career that you couldn't have got from some other means, from an internship or studying something completely unrelated. So that's the claim. I don't see how you can study philosophy at university, or most academia, sort of like traditional topics, without then contributing to the pyramid scheme of teaching others, or just not using your philosophical knowledge that you learn, and you're doing something unrelated, and the whole philosophy thing was just a waste of time, right? So I guess that's the claim. So I hope that's detailed enough. Dion, do you want to counter any of that?
Yeah. So, um, immediately I have two um things I want to push on, but it struck me while I was listening to your presentation that I'm not sure exactly what how you think a pyramid scheme works. So if you could just find me, or just give me like a short description that you would stand behind of how a pyramid scheme works, I think that might be helpful here.
Right. So there's different types of models. There's a difference between a Ponzi scheme and a pyramid scheme. A Ponzi scheme is more about promising like investment returns and stuff like this, but instead of the actual investment returns, it's just taking people's money and passing it up the pyramid. So that's why it's slightly different to a classic pyramid scheme, which is not a Ponzi scheme, which is um, recruiting people to pay money up the pyramid, and the more people you recruit, the more money is paid up the pyramid scheme. And of course, the people in the pyramid scheme at the top, or at the higher levels, can all get paid back and even make a profit. But generally, the people at the bottom rungs of the pyramid scheme always pay money up the pyramid and don't make their money back. Like in the bottommost rung of the pyramid, bottommost level of the pyramid, they don't make their money. There has to be subsequent levels beneath them in the pyramid scheme before they can actually make their money back. That's just a rough idea of what a pyramid scheme is, right?
Okay. All right. So then I think I have three lines of critique. So I think the first would be that, as a matter of fact, people who attend universities, um, on average, do actually end up yielding the returns financially. A lot of people do have to go into debt, but if you look at the figures of people without a bachelor's and people with a bachelor's, um, people with a bachelor's, especially later in their career, are making a significant amount of money per year, more than people who don't have a bachelor's. Um, I'm not sure whether that would exactly play out within philosophy, but my understanding is that uh, philosophy majors are actually on the higher side of the scale when it comes to humanities bachelor's recipients. So I'm not sure that I buy the premise that um, the majority of the people who contribute funds at the bottom level never see any of that money come back to them.
Right, well,
Um,
can I interject there? Because
yeah,
that
yeah.
point seems, to not really be a critique, because, my claim isn't that the people who enter the bottom rung never make their money back, right? They can quite easily make a profit if they recruit enough levels below them, but that's
They don't get the
what.
money from the system. Is that what you're saying? They don't get the money back from that system.
Well, no,
Would that
they
be the
can get
point?
the money back from the system, because they you can get money from, Right. So if the pyramid scheme is the university, and you go and work at the university after you've learnt at the university, let's just say a very local pyramid scheme, right? It's just including one single university, and so you pay all the tuition fees to the university to study there, and then you go and work at the university. Well, when you were studying, you were at the bottom rung of the pyramid, but then when you became a professor, there's students below you, and of course you're making a profit. You're gonna pay all that money back, right? But then you're just in the pyramid scheme, right? That you haven't escaped the pyramid scheme. You've been paid back, but that's just because you're in the pyramid scheme, right?
Well, that's specific to the person who becomes a professor, right?
Well, yeah, if they just like don't make money, then they didn't make money in the pyramid scheme, and if they do make money, then they do make money in the pyramid scheme, but it doesn't negate the fact that it's a pyramid scheme.
I mean, I thought what you I just remember you saying one part of your point was that the vast majority of the people who contribute at the lowest level don't end up getting any sort of reciprocation from the system itself, and it's only the people who higher up on the rung who get any of those benefits.
Right,
Is that
but
right?
your in entry point is always gonna be at the bottom of the pyramid, or in some way, like, close to the bottom of the pyramid. Um, but then you move up the pyramid, or the pyramid just gets larger, right, more accurately. The pyramid gets larger, so then you're no longer at the bottom of the pyramid. But if you go and um, like do some other job that's unrelated, and your philosophy degree didn't benefit you in any significant way, then it's just like you drop out of the pyramid, but you just got scammed by the pyramid.
So you got scammed by the pyramid. When you say the philosophy degree didn't benefit you in any way, I mean, presumably you have to discount the fact that, like, you know, it's very likely that your bachelor's degree, whether it was in philosophy or some other field, was played a significant causal factor in you getting this high paying job where you can afford to um, not have to seek something out, like, oh, my last resort is I have to become like an adjunct philosophy professor or something like that. So presumably, like, it did help you a little bit. It just didn't help you. It didn't loop you back into the scheme.
Right, but what job would you be getting which, based upon your qualification as a philosopher, um, will allow you to have some completely unrelated higher paying job, right? Because higher paying jobs are going to be specialized jobs, and you need to then have experience, or at least significant knowledge or competence in that specialization. And if you've trained in a different specialization to be a philosopher, then the specialization isn't like translatable through you can't just say, oh well, I'm gonna use my philosophy degree to be a structural engineer or a doctor. It doesn't, like, it's not going to benefit you. It might sort of like benefit you in some way within the pyramid scheme of academia, that you could like sort of demonstrate that you've got some advantage from having a degree already, so then you can sort of like shorten a subsequent degree in a semi-related field or something, but I don't even think that's that common. And yeah, so it would almost be like, if your point is, well, I can use my degree to show that I've got like some sort of qualification. Well, then it's almost just irrelevant that you studied philosophy in the first place. Like, the philosophy degree could have counted for, you could have done an internship instead and just proved experience. You could have studied being a hairdresser. Like, it's just so unrelated at that point that I would just say that would contribute to getting scammed by the pyramid.
Okay, so I'll just move on to this, my direct response to this part, and then after that, as far as I can tell, I only have one other line of critique. But I
Okay.
reject the but I reject the premise that a specialized training in philosophy does not set you apart or give you any particular advantages in any non-philosophical field. So I'm going to send some statistics in here about philosophy majors and how well they do on the GMAT, the LSAT, the GRE, the MCAT. There's all sorts of things. So just give me a sec to gather these together. There's this one. Here are GRE scores of philosophy majors compared to others. Philosophy is the highest in analytical writing and verbal. It has the highest by far out of any humanities in the quantitative section of the GRE. What else do we have? GMAT one. Yeah. I'm just gonna so people can see. Dun-dun-dun. Yeah. Where's it? Come on, load. There we go. Yeah, so this is yeah. Philosophy majors consistently score very highly on the MCAT required for application to medical school. It's earned philosophy majors the highest percentile chance of acceptance rate to med school with an average of 50%, whereas the average for all other majors is 37. Philosophy majors 15 percentage points higher than biology majors for applications to medical school, the graduate management admission test. Yes, I see correlation, not causation. I'm sorry that I didn't go into the nuanced statistical problems here. Yeah, of course, this doesn't prove that the philosophy training is actually doing any work, but I would say that it's very unlikely that students that all of this disparity is due to the type of students who choose to major in philosophy. I mean, I know that arguments from personal lived experience are not worth much, but most of the philosophy majors I knew were pretty stupid in my undergrad at least, and I went to a pretty damn good school. But maybe not stupid, but just lazy. Anyways, but yeah, so the broad point would be that it seems that doing philosophy sets one up. I think it's really hard to argue that, in terms of an inference to the best explanation, that a philosophy training is playing no role in preparing one for the LSAT, when the best actual academic course you can take to prepare yourself for the LSAT in terms of course content is just going to be like advanced formal logic course, because that's the way that the LSAT works. So in terms of getting a career as a lawyer, I can't see any other major choice that would set you up even close to as well. But again, because we're dealing with correlation and not causation here, we, the science is not going to be very much on my side, and this is going to be a little bit more conjectural than firm empirical hard data. But I mean, if you look at it, it's hard to see these statistics and think, oh yeah, I mean, no big deal. I don't think that the philosophy training itself is actually valuable at all. it's really hard to argue your way around it. But anyways, I'll move on. I think this is, to me, the most salient line of critique would be that there are just too many disanalogies between a university and between a pyramid scheme. So you mentioned at the beginning that there are certain exceptions for, like, certain students in the university wouldn't be participating in the pyramid scheme because they would be on a scholarship, or maybe they're a veteran and like the federal government pays their tuition. Maybe they have a merit scholarship, and in fact, them just performing very well has actually led the school to um, pay a significant portion of their tuition, because having that great student at the school makes the university look better. There are students who don't have to pay tuition because they have a family member, typically a parent, who works at the university. Even if the parents don't even have to be professors or faculty or anything like that. My friend got free tuition at USC because his dad works for the food and dining, like on campus um, organization that deals with like catering events that USC hosts. So I mean, you have all these strange exceptions. You also have, aside from merit-based scholarships, you have need-based scholarships at a lot of universities, where if a student's family income is below a certain level, then the state will actually cover pretty much all of the tuition, and all that the student ends up paying is um, room and board, or rent, if they're not living in a dorm. And I just have a hard time seeing how you would be able to accommodate these sorts of exceptions um, and sort of rule bending. And I get that there could be like nepotism in a pyramid scheme, but I don't think that you would ever have a pyramid scheme where you some of the people who participate in the pyramid scheme um, don't have to pay their fair share, as it were, simply because they're poor or because they fought in a war. Um, I don't see what the analogy would be, and I have a hard time making sense of that.
Right. So a few points there. And Arco called out from the chat about the correlation doesn't mean causation point, and that was going to be the immediate line of attack that I was thinking of. But I'll address some other points before we get into that. So, you mentioned the nepotism might not be so strong as to um, it might not be somehow relevant to the pyramid scheme, but I think it's actually quite relevant to the pyramid scheme, because if you're running a pyramid scheme, um, why wouldn't you want a famous person to come into the pyramid scheme for free? You might even pay the famous person to come into your pyramid scheme to advertise the pyramid scheme so that you could recruit more people into your pyramid scheme, right? So that would actually be advantageous to the pyramid scheme to get a famous person in. Or if you were in the pyramid scheme, you could somehow get a friend or family member to come in for free as well, or for a reduced cost. So there's no real reason there that it wouldn't apply to a pyramid scheme equally. And in terms of it being state financed, well, then it's just taxpayer subsidization into the pyramid scheme, right? And then there was the other point about, well, um, the causation and correlation thing. Well, let's just even grant for a minute that it did imply for some reason some causation. Let's just say that philosophy did produce smarter people, right? And then they went on for their law, to pass the bar or whatever you need to do to become a lawyer, uh, more easily than someone who studied gender studies. Um, Well, cool, but why would you not just do an LLB in law, which instead of a BA in philosophy, it just seems more specific, and you would be more familiar with all of the things that are essential to law, and coming out of a philosophy degree, you might be knowledgeable about some area of law from studying like Hobbes or something, or like Locke, or I don't know. Maybe you've got like some interesting sort of like macro theories of law and economics and politics and stuff. But surely it's going to be a lot more fitting to just simply study law, and then you'll have all of the information that is required in order to go into that field, rather than having to completely reskill into law after studying something which is almost entirely unrelated. Like as I say, like there's some things maybe Locke might be helpful in understanding, like some sort of like basis of law, or maybe Bentham like wrote a bit about politics and law and stuff like this, but not enough to really be specialized enough for the modern day career as a lawyer. So then, to finally just question it, the correlation and causation thing, like it really feels to me like people who study gender studies might just not be the type of people who would go and study a philosophy degree. Like, given the choice, it's not normally going to be the case in my imagination that someone with pink hair, ranting and raving about Marxism is going to be equally inclined to go and study gender studies as studying a degree in philosophy, right? It just doesn't seem likely to me. Although that is just based upon my own personal prejudice, I guess, of what I consider a gender studies pupil to look like, which might be not favourable, I guess. But that's sort of slightly beside the point. I don't think there is any real ground to prove correlation. I think it's more like, sorry, not to prove correlation. Of course, there's a correlation, but to prove causation, because it just seems like philosophy people, as evidenced by the people in this server, just seem to be smart people. And anyone who I've seen like sort of ranting and raving and screeching on the internet about sort of SJW type stuff. I'm not sure if that correlates with my understanding of the high level of intellectual discussion that I see in philosophical circles. So for me, just intuitively, there doesn't seem to be causation. And then even if there is a causation, it's like, well, why are you studying philosophy instead of studying law or studying a medical degree anyway? Because that would just surely be better. And then people can come into the pyramid scheme in various different ways. You might even pay someone to come into the pyramid scheme to promote it so you can get a bigger pyramid. And if it's state financed, then the state is just paying into the pyramid scheme. So I think all of those criticisms that you laid out aren't problematic for the conceptualization of academia in this sense as being a pyramid scheme.
Okay, I'm now confused. But I'll first try to go to the discussion of gender studies. So, I mean, I know you well enough to know that you don't think that gender studies and philosophy are the two possible major choices. So I'm wondering why you would deliberately choose something like gender studies. And I mean, maybe you didn't intend to suggest that there's essentially like two kinds of people. There's like there's philosophy people who are serious, and then there are like gender studies people. I just, I mean, I don't think that you would sincerely suggest such a thing, but I think a much more plausible story would go something like this. Um, there are people who are more inclined to serious, rigorous academic study, um, and there are people who um, don't care so much what they major in. They just sort of want the degree, right? If they're at a university, I'm saying there are roughly these two kinds of people. Um, And I think that there are some serious, rigorous people who actually do go into fields like gender studies. And those are the kinds of people who end up with gender studies PhDs. People like Judith Butler. I mean, if you've ever read Judith Butler or you've listened to her give a talk, you know that she is, without question, a serious, rigorous thinker. She's, I don't, technically her PhD is in philosophy, but I'm pretty sure that she's been a professor in the gender studies department at Berkeley for pretty much as long as she's had tenure. What I think is much more plausible story, like I said, is that there are these serious, rigorous thinkers, and that most of these students, when they go into the university, have not decided at all on, at least not conclusively, on what sort of degree they want to pursue. There are going to be people who are leaning towards math or leaning towards political science, leaning towards actuarial science, biology, physics, chemistry, anthropology, history. There are all sorts of serious, rigorous analysis to be done in these other fields besides philosophy. And I don't think that it just seems implausible to me to think that the correlation could be explained by the type of person who ends up in a philosophy major, because I just don't think that there really is any such type of person. I mean, this, like, there are so many environmental factors that go into what degree you choose. A big factor in me choosing philosophy in my undergrad was that my best friend my freshman year on on my floor at my dorm was already a philosophy major because he knew that it would set him up best for law school, and he encouraged me to take a critical thinking class, and I did, and then I was sold. If I hadn't taken that class, who knows? Maybe I would have been a film and media studies major. That's what I went and declared as. I actually didn't even like school so much until I started studying philosophy. And it's entirely possible that I would have never gone into philosophy. And I sincerely don't think that I would have the rigorous analytical thinking skills that I have today if it weren't for my training in philosophy, having taken over 20 upper division courses in advanced philosophy. So, I mean, I could go on and on about how I don't think that the story you're telling about, you know, who ends up in what department makes a whole lot of sense. There are a few other things I need to address with respect to your claims about law and medicine and such. You said something along the lines of, you know, you should just get an LLB. I think you said, like, I assume that's a law degree in the UK or in Europe.
Yeah.
You know, universities in the US don't have undergraduate degrees in law. The most you're going to get is something like pre-law as an undergraduate major. And if you look in terms of the question, like, why would you not just be a pre-law major rather than study philosophy? Well, the philosophy majors actually tend to do better than the pre-law majors, as far as far as I know, on things like the LSAT, on things like the GRE.
Really?
And
Do you have evidence of that?
yeah, let me go look for it.
Right, because that would be bizarre if the specialized one led to worse results than the unspecialized one. That seems like a bit of a weird claim. It might be the case that because the philosophy degrees I don't know, older or more established, a better quality of education. But to say that a specialized course leads to worse results for the specialized field than an unspecialized one seems to
Well,
be very strange.
because the LSAT itself is not really based on law content at all, whereas I would imagine that taking a pre-law major would be a lot more content focused. I'm sure that a pre-law major, I mean, I would hope that they actually like offer a class that is intended specifically to prepare you for the LSAT, but maybe that's the sort of thing that you actually just have to like pay a private tutor for. But yeah, the LSAT does not have much content on it at all. It's pretty much a straight logic test. And so here is the figure. One sec. You also said why. So yeah. So I mean, and the same goes for pre-med. Like there, you can't get an undergraduate degree in medicine, but you can do pre-med at a lot of schools. But it remains true that philosophy students do better on the MCAT than biology students, which is most pre-med tracks are going to end up mostly biology. Of course, you're going to take some math, you're going to take some chemistry and some physics along the way, but it's going to be mostly biology. So it would still be to your advantage to do a philosophy degree and then just take the sort of courses that you need to have on your transcript when applying to medical school. Things like, calculus and general chemistry and that sort of thing. Finally, what was the last point? It was about oh yeah, like why would law school, like, even if, like, let's say that the LSAT scores were the same for philosophy majors and pre-law majors, why should you study philosophy? It's not going to actually help you at all. I mean, I know a couple of philosophy majors who have gone on to law school who just finished their first year, most of them, some of whom have already completed law school and are much older. But every single one of them that I've talked to, and this is like 5 or 6, who were like serious philosophy students in their undergrad, and then when they got to law school, sort of bragged a little bit about having an advantage over a lot of the other students because of just sort of ability to read cryptic texts. There's a lot in common with like legalese and like reading like Aristotle, or reading other difficult to understand texts where it's dense and also critically important that you understand every single sentence. So there are significant reasons to want to major in philosophy, even if you're going to leave the academy. The thing that I was getting more confused on as you went on was about how you're saying that the state just sort of joins in and becomes like a participant in the pyramid scheme when it pays certain students way through university. One thing that I am realizing it was strange for me to not have brought up before was that unlike pyramid schemes where there's no end in sight and the goal is to climb as high as you can and it never stops, that's the entire reason it works. The people who are going to university just to get a bachelor's, which is the vast majority of students, most students are not going to get a master's, let alone try to get a PhD and become an academic. And also, unlike a pyramid scheme, universities are remarkably transparent. They tell you how much it's going to cost each year for each person. If you're going to need to take out loans, well, then they'll tell you what sort of loans are available to you. They'll tell you what the interest rate's going to be for you. And and that's it. Like you get through it, and it's a very transparent process. It's up to you to decide. I mean, for me, the reason that I don't think that I participated, or that my university experience was much of a pyramid scheme at all, was that I was on scholarship pretty much the whole time and never paid more than $1,500 for an academic quarter, because of a combination of merit scholarships and my family's income in the state of California. So if I was the type of person who would have had to take out loans for all 4 years to go to university and then pay that off by myself for the rest of my life, I wouldn't have made the choice to go to university. I don't think. I don't think it would have been a smart decision on my part. That sort of actual calculated risk is not the sort of thing that you can really do before joining a pyramid scheme. There's a lot of shady shit going on behind the scenes. You never know when it's going to collapse. You never know. You have active reason to distrust the people who are telling you that you're doing the smartest possible thing for yourself. There are all these disanalogies, and I mean, I guess if you could talk about the transparency point, and if you could talk about the ability to calculate risk, and the fact that there is a timeline on your participation in this thing, which I mean, my understanding of pyramid schemes is they could tell you that there's a timeline, but if you are doing well in it, the goal should be to never leave the game. I guess you could draw an analogy with becoming a professor, but I don't see what the analogy would be for just getting a bachelor's and then starting a job where you make more money than you would have without a bachelor's.
Right, yeah, so a lot of interesting points there. I want to go back 10 minutes to when you were talking about the MCAT. My understanding of that is vague because I'm not a medical student, nor am I American, and I think that's more specific to America. But I was just having a look whilst you're talking, and the entry requirements are that you need a year of biology, a year of physics, a year of English, and 2 years of chemistry through organic chemistry. So, providing you can like pass the MCAT, like, and just go on to study medical stuff, like, I don't think, like, why would you need 3 years of a philosophy degree to pass a test that you might pass anyway? We probably will pass anyway if you're smart enough to become a doctor. Um, when you could just skip that, right? And you got a scholarship and stuff like this, and it was subsidized. But for the person that it's not subsidized, well, even if you are subsidized, the money comes from somewhere. The money comes from the taxpayer in that sense. But the the money that you're paying, why is it justified to do 3 years when you don't need? You literally just don't need to. Like, there's no reason to. You might get a better score on the MCAT, but like, why does that matter? Like, it doesn't matter in the grand schemes of your medical degree, right? Becoming a doctor. In terms of your doctorate, when you're applying for a job, once you're qualified as a medical doctor, they're not going to be like, oh, what was this score on the MCAT again? Like, as far as I'm aware, that's not what happened, right? So that's that point. I guess you can jump in and address that if you want. Otherwise, I'll move on
Yeah.
to the other ones.
I mean, so the reason why, so I take it your point was like, if you're in the US and you need to take all of these courses to be accepted into any medical school, and you need to do well enough on the MCAT to get into a decent medical school, then why would you be taking any philosophy courses? I guess the idea then would be, what, you should just take the required courses? That can't be the case, because you need a bachelor's degree to matriculate um, at medical school. So you need to major in something. Philosophy degree requirements are usually among the lowest in unit requirements in terms of how many courses you need to actually take, because the upper division courses are so dense and content heavy, and you can learn a lot by just taking a few classes. So from that perspective, it seems like philosophy would be among the best options for a student who knows they want to go to medical school, um, knows that they need to take all of these courses in order to qualify as an applicant, but also knows that they need a bachelor's degree in something. So there's going to have to be something else that they fill up the rest of their transcript with. And the question wouldn't just be, why would you why I think you're you're framing it as, why would you just waste your time taking these philosophy courses? But really, the what I think we can reasonably infer from all of these incredible statistics about philosophy majors outscoring so many other majors and being the top of the pack in so many different um, wide-ranging advanced graduate exams, it suggests that actually taking the philosophy courses is doing something. I mean, we're not going to go over this again with the correlation causation thing, but in terms of just an inference to the best explanation, given all of the data and the tremendous advantage overall when you look across all of the different graduate exams, it suggests that actually taking the philosophy courses really is doing something. So I wouldn't frame it as wasting your time taking these classes that you're not going to use in medical school. I would frame it as giving yourself possibly the best brain workout you can in preparation for diving deep into a field of study after you graduate.
Right, yeah, it just seems like, because I'm not familiar with the US system, there's just some important differences which we seem to be talking past each other a bit, or I'm saying things which don't apply to the US system. In the UK, like if you wanted to become a doctor, you would just do some sort of like science, like directly related to medicine. Like you could do like a BSc in medical science or something like this, and just like progressing that way. And I'm pretty sure the MCAT isn't even a thing here. So there are some differences, but the point is the same, that you could just do a special something more specialist. What my point is there is, why would you choose something unrelated rather than something specialized? But if there's like some system that I'm unaware of in America that specifically works in the US like differently, which forces you to do something unrelated, I don't really understand that point, because I'm just not familiar enough with the way that it works over there. But in the UK, it certainly just would seem bizarre to choose
Yeah,
something
it sounds more
unrelated.
reasonable over there. Yeah.
Yeah, if the picture you're painted, the picture that you painted is true in the US, that you're forced to choose something completely unrelated before you're even allowed to do the specialized thing, then I've got no idea what all that's all about. But that's
I
just,
would
it
push
just
back a
sounds.
little. It's you're not forced by any means to do something completely unrelated. It's just that there are certain specialized graduate degrees, like uh, becoming a medical doctor, becoming a lawyer, where there's no sort of junior bachelor equivalent.
All right. So yeah, well, in the UK, there just seems to be those things, or at least like fairly related fields, right? So the bachelor for like that what you're saying, that you can't do a bachelor's degree, like a bachelor of science, in any medical field.
I mean, no, it's not that you can't do it in any medical field. It's just that there's no sort of bachelor's level equivalent for an MD. Like you can study you can study something like pharmacology as a specialization within the biology major. You can
Okay.
study um,
Yeah, well, there
you
you
can
go.
study
That's what I
like
mean.
you can do a political science degree where you specialize in law probably somewhere, um, or history. You can do like history and public policy or something like that. But there's not the sort of equivalent. I have a friend whose best friend did a law degree in the UK, and it does seem a lot more straightforward over there.
Yeah, like there's courses for everything in the UK. If you want to study like some, I could just like Google some like specific random thing for a joke, but I guess we can do that later after the debate. But there are almost like comically specific things in the UK. So I guess it's
Hmm.
just a difference between the the differences between the US and the UK there.
Well,
So
there are
I
some
don't know,
things like there are certain schools where you could study, like you could get a bachelor's degree in like whatever the fancy name is for being a wine connoisseur. Like, but it's just not
right,
a very popular. Like, it's not gonna be at most schools, but some schools will have it.
right, yeah. So I don't know. I guess it's just really different over there. The main points still are on the table though, getting back to the pyramid scheme one. So the thing is you said like about the pyramid scheme, you don't know when it's gonna collapse, all these issues, so it's disanalogous in that sense. Well, not really, because we don't know when academia could collapse. It like in 2020, not only have we got like pandemics and the economy being all weird and tuition fees rising, but we've also got the added pressure to universities of the fact that now the pandemic has forced everyone to do online teaching. And then if everyone's paying $10,000, $20,000 a year tuition fees, or even more, I guess, in some places, and then they're just sitting and doing it online anyway, then can't you just do it online? And then it's going to be like, well, all of the information of the human race pretty much is on the internet now anyway. So how long will the sort of industry of academia exist for in this sense? Because it's the whole system of academia is being replaced by the internet in some senses, right? And so there's even a question, when will academia itself collapse, right? Because it's quite conceivable that people just decide to study things on the internet and not go to university. So then, being a professor, like at some point, everything could just be pre-recorded and interactive, and like machine learning, not machine learning, like learning from like videos and pre-recorded content, stuff like this. And if you wanted to teach philosophy, or if you wanted to be involved in academia in any sense, well, either your job's not going to exist anymore, or you're not going to make any money from it. So it's not disanalogous in that sense, because academia could quite feasibly collapse. So I guess it's been a really interesting conversation so far. I think we've put a lot of points onto the table, and it's got to the point where you're saying it's a bit disanalogous. I'm saying it's not. You're saying that philosophy might help you a bit studying unrelated specializations. I'm saying, I don't really know. Maybe you can do it without. Um, I don't feel like I'm ready to concede to your position at this point, and I feel like we've explored a lot of avenues already. So it might be a nice time in the debate to just simply leave it there and go to a vote. What do you think, Dion?
Sure. I'd like to just get a little closing statement in.
Yeah, sure,
And
go ahead.
really, to give you a chance to respond to something that I don't think that you fully addressed yet.
Okay.
Um, and quickly respond to your last point. I mean, point very well taken that academia could collapse, and if I had been debating you a year ago, I don't think that the we would be so quick to assert that. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's never looked more likely than right now, probably, that academia is on the verge of a total collapse. I mean, I don't think that the internet will replace universities, mostly because um, there is a huge awareness from the people who really care about learning in a university setting, of the value of in-person teaching and in-person class time with peers and with professors, and the atmosphere of a philosophy seminar room, for instance. It's just something that you can't recreate um, on the
Yeah.
internet. I mean, perhaps you can one day, but definitely not now. Um, with all those points, just want to add that the the crucial point that I was trying to make there that wasn't that academia is disanalogous, because you because with a Ponzi scheme you never know when it's going to collapse, versus academia you can be pretty sure that it's not going to collapse, because I mean, clearly right now that's not true. The point that I was trying to make was that um, beforehand you can make a pretty reliable calculation of your um, the costs of how much it's going to cost you, and you can be pretty sure that uh, what they tell you it's going to cost you, as long as um, you are responsible, and you read the information they give you clearly and carefully, you can determine how much money you're going to have to take out in loans, whether you're going to have to do that at all. You can make the informed decision for yourself whether this is the sort of way you want to spend your money and your time over several years. Um, Going into a pyramid scheme, I don't see how that analogy would hold up. And then finally, I just don't see how the fact that uh, there are citizens who, through taxes, fund scholarships, etc., that somehow this is analogous to a pyramid scheme. Because I mean, you have um, social democracy or democratic socialist type countries in Europe where taxes fund free public university for anyone who can get into the schools. And that, to me, doesn't seem at all like a pyramid scheme. It doesn't seem to me that, like, um, the citizens paying the taxes um, are somehow, getting completely screwed over, funneling all the money up to the top, these super rich people. It's going to be more like that in the US because of the capitalist economics of it, and the fact that there are going to be, um, you know, bloodthirsty, blood-sucking capitalist vampires at the top um, of any highly respected higher education institution. But I am still unclear on those 2 points. How you can make the analogy about clear, calculated, informed risks going into education being analogous to a pyramid scheme, and also how exactly it is that finances that come through taxation of the citizenry um, are analogous to the bottom level of a pyramid scheme.
Right, yeah. So I'll address those 2 points and then we'll put it to votes then. So the risk, I guess, with the risk, it seems like there's some sense of when you're going to study at university, people say, "Oh, this is the right thing to do, and going to university is a safe bet, and this is a good investment for your future," and all these types of things. But is that really true? Actually, what is the risk of a pyramid scheme? The risk is that you're going to lose your money. What is the risk of academia? The risk is you're going to lose your money, or the money that you're paying isn't going to provide you with some useful, tangible benefit. But in the case of pyramid scheme, the risk is that you're not going to get any use from it as well. The risk in with one is the same as the risk in the other. You might not get any benefit from one, you might not get any benefit from the other. And it's by no means like some safe bet going to university. Some people go to university, rack up in some cases over $100,000 of. I think actually $100,000 isn't even that alarming anymore. That's just like almost routine. Medical students like more like $250,000, or I've even heard I think $500,000 like student loan fees, student loan debt. Like, how is that not a risk? Like, that could potentially just destroy you for the rest of your life.
I think I have to interrupt here because you are misrepresenting my position. I'm not saying
How?
that it's not a risk at all. I never said that these things aren't risks. I said that if you do your research, you can actually calculate the risk and make an informed decision about um, how much money you stand to lose, how much money you stand to go in debt, and you can make a pretty exact decision, estimation of what your costs and benefits are financially. And then based on that, you can decide what to do. I never said that there
Right.
was no risk.
Well, in the case of academia, you've got some risk, and your benefits. You can't guarantee your benefits, right? You can only speculate on your benefits. In the pyramid scheme, you've got some risk, and you can't guarantee your benefits. You can only speculate on your benefits. And if you want to do some sort of like Bayesian hierarchical calculation, you could come to a fairly informed idea of, or like fairly good guess, or good sort of roundabout idea of how much risk reward ratio there is. Just the same in stock market trading. You've got risk reward. You've got risk reward in real estate, in many different things, right? And I don't see why there's some sort of like unclearness, or epistemic impossibility with the pyramid scheme, which is somehow just so clear with academia. And I think they're both equally calculable. You can calculate both equally, and there's risks which might even be equal. You might even have a lower risk with a pyramid scheme than academia. You might have a pyramid scheme where you're one of the first levels, and like there's a quite common dog food selling pyramid scheme that recruit people, and you can actually it's sort of like a pseudo pyramid scheme, or no, more like a hybrid pyramid scheme, the dog food selling one. And if you're close to the top, or even on one of the bottom rungs, you can make quite a lot of profit. You can do a calculated risk and make quite a lot of money out of some pyramid schemes. It's not that all pyramid schemes are unprofitable. Of course not. You can earn big bucks from pyramid schemes. That's why they exist. It just depends where you are in the pyramid. So I sort of reject that. The only difficult point to address, I guess, is the finance through taxation, because I'm just going to say, well, the taxpayer is subsidizing the pyramid scheme, and you're just going to disagree, and so we're not going to be able to move past that. I guess that's just going to be a disagreement. I guess.
Okay. Yeah. If you wanna, I feel like the that your position having weight would, you would have to first justify something like all structured civil societies are fundamentally pyramid schemes. Now, I'm not saying that's necessarily untrue, but that would require a lot of separate argumentation. Um, and then finally, I just want to clarify uh, a brief thing about I do feel that there was a bit of hand waving in your last comments about risk and speculation, and you were sort of saying like, well, in a pyramid scheme, you can not be guaranteed of either your how good your outcomes will be, or um, you can know that there's for sure a risk, and you can't know how possibly good the outcomes will be or how likely it is that they'll come about. The same is true of a university, but the same is true as of literally everything, because we are not certain about the future. It doesn't mean that the probabilities are the same. Yeah, I mean, I think I've gotten a little sort of my head's a little fuzzy with this. I feel like, yeah, it's time to let it go to a vote. But I appreciate the discussion. It's been fun.
Yeah, it's been a real interesting one. Yeah, let's put it to a vote then, I guess.
Okay, awesome. You both are all set with your closing statements?
Yeah.